Hello everyone and welcome back. In this lesson we are going to be writing our selector that we need to query the store in order to determine if a page of data is already present. If the data is not present in the store, then we need to add here some logic to load lessons in order to trigger the loading of the data. But the first step is to see if the data is present. Let's then define the selector that we are going to need for that. We are going to define here a selector called select lessons page. And actually this variable is not the selector itself, this is a function that returns a selector. So this function takes a couple of arguments, the first being the course ID and the second is going to be the page of lessons that we need. So this is going to be of type page query. This function that we are defining here in line is going to return then a selector. So let's go ahead and call create selector here. What this selector will do is we are going to take all the lessons data, we are going to filter it based on the course ID, and we are going to slice a page of that data and return it as the output of the selector. The first thing that we're going to need here is a selector that gives us back all the lessons. So we're going to call it select all lessons. This selector is not yet written. We are going to define it here. We are going to call it select all lessons, we are going to call create selector on it, and we are going to compose it in the following way. We are going to start by selecting the root lesson state. That's the state under which all the lesson state is kept. So it's kept under the root property of the store called lessons. So in order to select that root state, we are going to define here a new feature state similar to the one that we defined here for courses. So this time around we are going to call it the select lesson state, and this is going to return us back an output of type lesson state, and we are looking for all the state under the lessons root property. So this gives us back the complete lesson state that we have on the store. Let's then apply this feature selector here, and now we just need to apply here the projector function. This function should take the root lesson state and should output an array with all the lessons that are present in memory. So just like before, like we did here for select all courses, we are going to be using the select all selector that is being generated here via the adapter. So this makes it very simple to get an array with the correct order of the lessons. Let's then go ahead and use this select all selector. We're going to first write here an import statement similar to this one. So we are going to import star from lesson, and we're going to import this from the lessons reducers file. So with this import here, we can now access here the select all function that we have here available. So with this we have selected here our select all lessons selector that we can then compose here to obtain a given page. So here with the output of this selector we have an array with all the lessons. So we just now have to filter them by course ID, and we need to slice a page out of that result set. Let's then implement our projector function. We are going to find here a member variable all lessons, so this contains the output of this selector here, and we're going to use it to determine the page that we need. So first what we're going to do is we are going to define the starting index of the page. Let's define a variable for that. We are going to call it simply start, and we're going to define it as being the page index multiplied by the page size. So this defines the starting point of our page. We also need to define where the page ends, so let's go ahead and define here a second variable that we're going to call end, that is going to be simply the start index plus the page size. And with this we have everything that we need to implement our pagination logic. We are going to filter the lessons based on the course ID, so we're going to take only the lessons which have a course ID property that is identical to the course ID member variable that we have here, and then we are going to take that output and we are going to slice it using the variables that we have just defined. So we just have to pass in here the start and end variables. The result of this chain of operators is going to be the lessons page that we are looking for, so we can go ahead and return it here as the output of this selector. There is only one thing missing here, which is we would like our page of data to be sorted by a particular property of lessons. So if we open here our lesson model class, we can see that we have here a sequential number property. So we would like the lessons on each course to be sorted by this property. The problem is we would like to avoid having to add here a sorting operation to this chain of operators, because this is going to be executed each time. Instead, we would like the default order of the lessons in memory in the store to be based on this property here. Let's then see how can we configure our store and define a default sorting order for a given entity.